Will the owners of the Ford Model T license number 37X, you left your lights on in the parking lot. You can either come to the office or you could just go straight out and, turn your lights off. I don't know why I said it's a black Model T, since all Model Ts are black Model Ts. Adam from Småland. Adam Jansson from Småland. Your parent, but I know this is not the end you're talking to, by the way. Your parents are here in the office. They're very worried about you. They last saw you in the produce aisle. Apparently you were squeezing oranges and talking about boobs. Look, we've all been there, Adam. We've all been there. Just come to the office. We can work the... You're 12. Come on, that's a tough age. We'll have a couple beers. We won't have a couple beers, but we'll put on some Allman Brothers, and we'll work this out, Adam. And once again, will the owners of a black Model T, license plate 37X. Your lights are no longer on. I just think it's such a cool license plate. I had to say that. So, hey, how's it going?
This month's top headline: a movie ignites a German culture war.
All quiet on the Western Front. Banned. Brüning's first coalition offer to Hitler. Pacifism. Pan-Europe. Old hat. War is the motto of fascist Germany. Proletarians rally around the flag of communism.
Film ban, triumph of terror. This is what a war film must look like to be allowed in Germany.
Remark film banned. The ruling of the Film Review Board. The Prussian government disagrees, even regarding the American version. The remark film banned. The threat to German reputation finally acknowledged. The film previously withdrawn by the production company.
The ban of the smear movie. The reason? What nation would tolerate the portrayal of its own defeat? Insolence and mockery by the film Jew Lemmerle.
I'm Indy Neidell.
I'm Spartacus Olsson.
And this is The Rise of Hitler. Welcome back to the Weimar Wire, covering December's daring, delicious, and deceitful decisions and illusions.
But first, let's recap November. Last month saw the DOX, the world's largest flying boat, or plane for that matter, take off on its journey across the Atlantic.
In Berlin, 300 students were arrested for illegal dueling, while in Austria, the election saw disappointing results for the National Socialists.
The former Berlin chief of police got punched in the face by a communist, and Chancellor Brüning presented his new budget for 1931.
And the Disarmament Commission in Geneva raised questions regarding Germany's future foreign policy and the Treaty of Versailles. But that was November. Here are more December headlines.
More presidential decrees and votes of no confidence. Brüning cannot catch a break.
A court rules in favor of the Nazis in Glogau, Silesia.
Over a dozen bombs are secured by police in Pirmasens, and assassination plots uncovered.
The economic crisis still does not let up. Wages are falling and the workers are striking.
In international news, French Prime Minister Tardieu is forced to step down after losing a vote of no confidence.
And in his Christmas address, Pope Pius XI issues a warning. It is more difficult, if not impossible, for peace to endure among peoples and states if there reigns an egoistic and harsh nationalism, which means ambition for hegemony and domination instead of respect and protection of all rights, even those of the weak and the small.
Now, before we discuss some of this news in more detail, here's Where's Hitler?
Yeah.
What's Adolf up to this month? Well, he begins the month by saying, a politician should not get caught up in day-to-day issues but must focus on guiding principles at an assembly of the National Club of 1919 in Hamburg.
On the 7th in Stuttgart, he says, our nation once again stands at a turning point in its history, that our people will once again be asked how and if they intend to sustain and preserve their future, and that this time our people will answer with a resounding yes.
On the 11th, he is in Braunschweig speaking at a Nazi party rally, where he tells his supporters, all the work we do does not benefit us, but the victors of the World War, simply because we lack the political power to ensure that the fruits of our labor serve us, and only us.
Besides small organizational changes to the Gauwesen, the Nazi Party's way of splitting up Germany into organizational districts, he doesn't get up to much more in December. at least publicly.
And now, here's the news.
Yeah. This month, there is a trial in Glogau, Silesia that elicited strong emotions from Social Democrats. Nazi Party member and Gauleiter of the Silesian SA, the Nazi paramilitary organization, Kurt Kremse, must answer charges of slander and agitation against the Republic under the Reich Protection Law. At a party rally in April, he made some potentially incriminating statements.
He claimed, among other things, that the Republic was built on perjury and high treason. He described the Republic as being governed by 5 Jewish corporations and spoke of the treacherous activities of the rulers under the guise of patriotism. He declared that the Reich President's proclamation regarding the signing of the Young Plan was just as deceitful as that of the people's representatives in 1918.
Yeah.
Serious accusations, but why would that provoke a strong reaction from the Social Democrats? Isn't this exactly what the Social Democrats want? People who make such statements being held liable, I mean?
Yeah, that is exactly the reason.
I still don't understand. Why are they mad about it then? Was his sentence too weak?
There wasn't a sentence.
Ah, I understand. They couldn't prove that he said those things back in April.
No. They have multiple witnesses to it, including a police inspector and a senior police sergeant.
Okay, did the prosecution make some kind of error that got Kremse released on a technicality?
No, that is also not what happened. Okay, let me just get to the point, right? This is the verdict of the judge in the case, director of the regional court, Dr. Lau.
The defendant is acquitted at the expense of the state treasury. The revolution is perjury and treason because of the revolutionaries of 1918 rendered the troops defenseless by striking and blocking the transport of munitions and food supplies. This was most egregious, perjury and treason.
There you have it.
A judge buying into the stab in the back myth. That's not good.
That's not good.
To briefly explain, the stab in the back myth says that the German army was not defeated in the Great War, but that the revolutionaries at home caused the defeat.
Which is just plain not true. By November 1918, even beyond the collapsing Western Front, you have millions of Entente soldiers marching through Austria-Hungary to Bavaria, and exactly 0 German soldiers there to fight them. As Erich Ludendorff said, we can't fight the whole world. Anyway, the Social Democrats agree that this is not ideal. This verdict is proof of how deeply the Nazi plague has already infiltrated the judiciary. A judge who uses the justification of a verdict to revive the defamatory and shamelessly deceitful stab in the back myth can no longer claim impartiality.
Indeed. At the beginning of the month, the ever-building tensions between the Nazis and the communists once more almost became explosive. Quite literally this time. According to the Nazis, the police have uncovered a large-scale communist plot against the National Socialist movement. It is reported that the plan involved a bomb attack on the National Socialist district office in Kaiserslautern. An assassination attempt on Adolf Hitler during his visit to Kaiserslautern was also allegedly planned.
However, according to the communists, the true facts are as follows. 2 bandits who had been expelled from the Communist Party in Kaiserslautern for embezzlement had recently joined the National Socialists and were similarly acting as unscrupulous informants for the police.
In other words, the accusations are just a revenge ploy.
Yeah.
That story quickly loses all credibility, though, given that the police find bombs and other explosive materials in houses and apartments of members of the Communist Party.
Yeah.
The police take 24 people into custody, and here's what Vorwärts reports. Around a dozen of these bombs were crafted from old hand grenades. According to statements made by the manufacturer, the bombs were intended for use in a potential future civil war, particularly against fascists. They are communist members of the so-called League of Anti-Fascists.
But there is one more mystery. These aren't just some improvised contraptions clobbered together in a damp cellar. These are bombs, painstakingly put together from real military-grade shells, serious explosives.
Where do you even get stuff like that? You can't just pick them up off a tree or go fishing for them in a lake.
It is funny that you should say that because that is exactly what they did. Well, I don't know if they actually fished for them, but here's what Vorwärts reports.
Not communist bombs, old war equipment. The bombs were manufactured from ammunition stockpiles of an anti-aircraft battery that had been dumped into a pond near Wietzen at the end of the war. Yesterday, the authorities conducted a more thorough investigation of this pond. A total of 81 grenades were recovered.
Jesus, 81. Just imagine what you could do with a total of 93.
Yep, thank God they got there.
Carry on.
Oh my God.
Aren't you just glad they got there in time? He's just glad they got there in time. Something which is, at least according to some, not the case with Chancellor Brüning. He is not in time to save the economy, nor even on the right track, they say. Nope, still me. The budget for...
Don't cut this.
No. The budget for 1931 is still making its rounds through Parliament with, shall we say, mixed results.
Here's one comment from Social Democrat MP Kyle, giving us some insight into how Germany could end up on the cliff of financial ruin.
When the German Republic came into existence 12 years ago, it faced nothing but a complete heap of ruins. The devastation caused by the 51 months of war had burdened the German people with a sheer financial cost amounting to between 150 and 200 billion gold marks.
Because of your betrayal!
Of this enormous financial burden caused by the war, almost nothing had been covered during the conflict. The expectation had been that war reparations would be paid to us by our enemies. However, events took a different turn. If you can prove high treason of my party, then please step forward and provide the evidence.
Look at the recent verdict.
Just to explain how much money we're talking about here. Last year, 1929, the total sum of all money generated by the government was around 20 billion marks.
In other words, Germany would need between 7 and 10 years without spending a single dime to recoup the money it still owes from the Great War alone. That does not include the welfare state, other loans used for the economic recovery in the 1920s, or anything else.
And also not reparations. These are just loans.
of course.
So to put it bluntly, during the Great War, the Kaiser bet everything on black, lost, and left the debt to the German people.
But that is just one of the problems Brüning faces this month. Another is the heavy resistance to his presidential decree from December 1st.
While the parliament seems to want to pass the government's budget, that is not the case for some accompanying laws. They'd require a supermajority in the Reichstag. Brüning already has a problem finding a simple majority, so he isn't even attempting that, hence the presidential decree.
And of course, there are opponents. Here is what the Nazis have to say.
The new tax dictatorship supported by the Social Democrats. The threat to public safety and order is not prevented but provoked. Down with the black-red dictatorship. The communists, likewise, have nothing nice to say about the whole affair.
Fascist dictatorship, despotism, starvation laws imposed through emergency decrees. Only the KPD fights against fascism.
The two form an unlikely and likely unintended alliance, with both parties working together to repeal the presidential decree. Contrary to popular belief, a presidential decree is not set in stone. A simple majority in parliament can reverse it.
That's what happened in July, and it ended with the dissolution of the Reichstag by President Hindenburg. After all, if there is no parliament, no one can repeal his presidential decrees.
This month, the Nazis and communists both try again and add a vote of no confidence on top for good measure, although a success of either would most likely lead to the same result, the dissolution of the Reichstag, according to the liberal Vossische Zeitung.
The motions to repeal the emergency decree were rejected in the Reichstag by 293 votes to 253. In the votes of no confidence, 256 votes were in favor, while 291 were against. Thus, the government secured a majority of 40 votes against repealing the emergency decree and 35 votes in the no confidence motions.
So, Germany just narrowly avoided another election or the resignation of the cabinet again. This is becoming a monthly occurrence, and by only 35 votes.
I know. It's hard to watch. And the government's majority is shrinking. In similar votes in October, they had an 83-vote majority.
But since then, the government has lost the support of the Economy Party, and some far-left Social Democrats decide to abstain rather than vote for Brüning. Not everyone is taking kindly to the SPD's current course.
Okay, do you mind reminding me of exactly what that is again?
Sure. The SPD, the Social Democrats, do not want a new government or new elections, since that could lead to further strengthening of the communists and the Nazis, just like in September.
Right.
So for now, they are playing along with Brüning.
Right. So, let's get to the headline of the month, okay? All Quiet on the Western Front is out in German cinemas, but the reaction has been anything but all quiet. This film is based on the book of the same name by German author Erich Maria Remarque. When it was released 2 years ago, the book was very successful all around the world.
The book and movie deal with heavy topics. The horrors of war, the grim daily reality of the soldier, the senselessness of the slaughter, the fickle flame of human consciousness, and the fact that there's nothing noble about dying.
The movie, directed by American Louis Milestone, has already been released in many other countries to huge critical acclaim and commercial success. It received 2 Oscars just last month.
Oscars? What are Oscars?
Oh, it's film awards given out by the American Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, right? They just started giving them out last year, though the ones last month are the 3rd ones, but it is supposed to be a yearly thing, right? All Quiet on the Western Front won Best Picture and Best Director.
Cool.
Yeah.
In the US, it first hit theaters in April, with general release beginning in August. Here's one review by the American magazine Variety.
Harrowing, gruesome, morbid tale of war. So compelling in its realism, bigness, and repulsiveness, the League of Nations could make no better investment than to buy up the master print, reproduce it in every language, to be shown in all the nations until the word war is taken out of the dictionaries.
Likewise, when another version, cut by 2 minutes, arrived in British theaters in June, the press showered it with praise. The Daily Telegraph wrote, "Few, if any, pictures ever created more profound impressions." And the New Chronicle stated, "Most remarkable picture Hollywood has ever given us."
On December 4th, it premieres in the Mozartsaal in Berlin, but it has been edited for the German release with some scenes removed. For example, one where the characters beat up a cruel lieutenant, right? Or another where Kaiser Wilhelm is accused of being to blame for the war.
But to be fair, though, this is not unique to Germany. As we mentioned, the British also removed 2 minutes, and the French likewise cut some scenes, like one where French women are romantically involved with German soldiers.
Let's see what the reactions of the first German audience are, as reported by the Vossische Zeitung.
The audience, which had earlier in the film applauded certain dialogues opposing the war with demonstrative approval, left the venue at the end in silence, as if deeply shaken to their core, unable to express any applause. Never before has a film impacted viewers and listeners so directly.
And then the problems begin. Rather than explain why many people take up issues with the film, I will let them explain themselves. Here is what Joseph Goebbels, Nazi MP, has to say about it.
It is a cultural disgrace that no German and no frontline soldier can or will watch. A film that denigrates the greatest soldier of all time, the German frontline soldiers, should not even be allowed to be shown.
Hitler agrees, calling it a shameful movie that mocks the German soldiery. But what exactly about the movie upsets the Nazis so much? Well, here are some of the more interesting reasons.
The pitiful wailing and screaming of the volunteers under the drum fire, their perpetually fear-distorted faces, their frantic, crude way of speaking. They are allowed to loot castles in enemy territory, mistreat civilians, and rape women. Like animals, our soldiers eat and drink with abandon. They are shown in torn uniforms with unkempt faces.
But that's what it was like. I mean, you were there. What the hell do they think? That we just sat around in clean and freshly ironed dress uniforms in pristine trenches, not showing exhaustion or fear or sadness? That we weren't human?
Yeah, I guess that's what they think, or at least how they want it shown. Where did you serve?
I was with Falkenhayn crossing the Carpathians, and I fought against the Romanians. I got injured and I got sent home after that. What about you? Where were you?
A Royal Bavarian Army.
Oh.
First at the Battle of the Frontiers, and then they split the Bavarian troops among 6th Army units, and I stayed west up until Arras, and then I got wounded too, and well, then I was out.
Okay.
The things we saw.
Things we did.
Yeah.
Well, the Nazis take it a few steps further than protest, though. On the 5th, Goebbels himself leads an effort to prevent any more showings of the movie. At around 7 p.m. during another screening, loud shouts and agitated screams disrupt the audience. Joseph Goebbels himself gets up and holds a rousing speech against the Jewish disgrace film. At the same time, more than 30 other Nazis begin hurling insults at the film and the moviegoers.
There are 16 policemen present, but they are powerless. The 30-plus screamers and shouters are Nazi MPs and, as such, enjoy immunity. Then stink bombs go off in the venue, and from small cardboard boxes, white mice were released in such quantities that one could assume a complete sellout of this item in all Berlin pet shops, as one moviegoer recalls.
Der Angriff, Goebbels' newspaper, writes the next day,
It should be emphasized that Dr. Goebbels had no intention whatsoever of organizing this wave of outrage. Coincidentally, a few Reichstag delegates of the NSDAP were also present in the audience. These gentlemen, too, appeared without any prior arrangement.
something I find very hard to believe, yeah? In the following days, these types of antics escalate and spread across Germany. And bear in mind, it's not just the Nazis that oppose the film. Everyone on the right mostly agrees the film needs to go.
Soon bans of the film are enacted. On the 8th, just 4 days after the premiere, Wilhelm Frick, Nazi Party member and Thuringian Minister of the Interior and Education, bans any screenings in Saxony.
But he doesn't stop there. He, together with the state of Saxony, launches an official protest with the Supreme Film Review Board, demanding a nationwide ban on the movie.
At the same time, the tactics of repression escalate, and every new showing becomes a small riot. Heavy police protection is needed for everyone.
The Nazis and other right-wing organizations host protest marches, block the entrances to cinemas, and threaten moviegoers wherever the movie is screened, but mainly in the capital, Berlin. Here is what Goebbels writes in his diary on the 9th.
Within 10 minutes, the cinema resembles a madhouse. The police are powerless. The embittered crowd takes out its anger on the Jews. Jews out! Hitler is standing at the gates. The police sympathize with us. The Jews are small and ugly. The box office outside is under siege. Window panes are broken. The screening is abandoned. As is the next one. We have won. The newspapers are full of our protest. The nation is on our side. In short, victory.
As a result, on the 10th, the Berlin chief of police bans all demonstrations across the city. In the meantime, the states of Baden and Bavaria have joined Saxony and Thuringia in lobbying for a nationwide ban of the film.
A day later, the Supreme Film Review Board presents its decision.
The chairman of the Supreme Film Review Board announced the verdict that the film All Quiet on the Western Front was banned due to its endangerment of German prestige. It is a movie about the German defeat.
Well, no shit, Sherlock. That's because we lost. For some, though, this banning is a real injustice. The Social Democrats declare it is a first step, but the French proverb that says it is only the first step that costs does not apply here. The first step may seem inexpensive, but how costly what follows will be, no one can yet measure.
The communists agree that banning this film is a step in the wrong direction. The regulations of the Reich Ministry of Defense even dictate what war films must depict. Soldiers who display a certain smile even in the greatest danger. In just a few weeks, everyone will be shouting, Heil! The Heil of today will become the Hurrah of 1914. Smile when the shells tear you apart in the coming war. Smile when poison gas burns your lungs. Smile when you're caught in barbed wire, your intestines shredded, dragged out slow, agonizing death. With a smile into the new war. This encapsulates the meaning behind the decision.
That's the news for this month. Or this year, actually. Before we go, let's quickly move on to the Weimar Wire Political Indicator, brought to you by Time Goes.
The SPD maintains a neutral to slightly negative trend, mostly because it cooperates with Brüning. The Chancellor and his coalition parties, the Bürger Bloc, continue their downward trend.
The Nazis and the Communists, on the other hand, stay on the up. Whenever uncertainty reigns and crisis looms, the far corners of the political spectrum benefit.
This month has given us some pressing questions that will carry into the new year.
Will Brüning have to deal with votes of no confidence every month?
Will one eventually succeed?
Will All Quiet on the Western Front be made available again, or will it remain banned?
Will more judges make the stab-in-the-back myth official?
Did the police find all the bombs?
Well, we'll get at least some of those answers in the new year. And let us hope for a good 1931. And Happy New Year to all of you listening every month to the Weimar Wire. And you, the Time Ghost Army, make it possible for us to cover just what is happening here in Germany in these turbulent, terrifying, and terrific days.
To become a part of it, join the Time Ghost Army on timeghost.tv or patreon.com. Weimar Wire signing off.
Excelsior!